Just a couple things to go over before the start of the endurance race. It will be broken up into 3 segments. Total race distance is 55 laps, 500 kilometers. Segment 1 is 22 laps. Segment 2 is 22 laps. The third segment is 11 laps. So that's 200 kilometers, 100 kilometers per segment. Cars 2 laps down are eliminated at the end of segment 1. Cars 1 lap down at the end of segment 2 will be eliminated. And at the end of segment 1, the field will be mirrored, so second will start first, first will start second. At the end of segment 2, the top 10 will be inverted, so 10th will start first, first will start 10th. That is to prevent drivers from just dominating the whole race. There will be no full course cautions, double points, as I already mentioned, I think. And at the end of the first and second segments, the top 5 drivers will be given points. First will get 5, second will get 4, third will get 3, fourth will get 2, and fifth will get 1. I will also not be covering pit stops in the race as thoroughly as I did in the heat race to try and shorten down the final length of the upload a little bit. So if your driver finishes near the back for some unknown reason and is involved in a crash or anything like that, assume that they had to make a third pit stop in segment 1 or 2, or a second pit stop in segment 3. I also apologize for any nasaliness that you may hear in my voice. I've got a bit of a sinus infection. Anyways, without further ado, here's the endurance race. Hope you enjoy it. Leading the 36-car field down for the longest race in HARC history would be Richard Trelinsky, the winner of the heat race held a couple of weeks ago. On his outside would be the 18 of TJ Dent. Off into Oval 1, Richard Trelinsky would easily take the lead. The first lap would be relatively calm. Most of the drivers stayed single file or 2 wide. But coming down the backstretch, Gerald Reddington and Alex Allen would jump to the inside of Richard Trelinsky, and coming through Oval 3, Alex Allen would take the lead. Alex would lead lap 1. Through Oval 1, however, Kyle Sosnowski in the 7 car, with some help from Sawyer Girl, would grab the lead. Sawyer would try to get a run going on the inside, but the outside would be great off the corner, and Kyle would keep the lead for now. Back around 20th place, things are heating up. Pichu London, Tylor Thaber, and Paul Swanson are racing 3 wide through Raritan Flow. Oh, Paul Swanson gets into Tylor Thaber. Tylor Thaber hard in the wall. The only New Jersey native is already out of the race, and we're only on lap 2. Coming down the backstretch, Alex Allen would team up with Sawyer Girl to get around Kyle Sosnowski. He would be left out to dry, that's for sure. But Carl and Dumian would move up into 2nd place as they rounded Oval 3. Coming into Oval 1, Carl and Dumian would take the lead from Alex Allen. James O'Shea would be the first car to go off track in Raritan Flow and hit the wall. He would come back on course and nearly cause an accident with Skylar Dixon and William Nicholson. Good car control on the part of Skylar Dixon to avoid getting into a more serious collision there. As they entered Bauer S, Alex Allen would dive it on in on the inside of Carl and Dumian, would make it stick, and would be able to get back on the inside for the second part of the corner, taking the lead. The oval section once again proved to be one of the easiest places to pass, as Carl and Dumian retakes the lead from Alex Allen as they head into oval turn 3. Coming through Bauer S, Damir Bezhianov would get a run on Carl and Dumian. Through the tunnel, we get to the inside of him, and through Menlo Sweep, Damir Bezhianov would take the lead. The lead would change several times over the course of the next oval section. Gerald Reddington would shove Damir Bezhianov out of line, and he would be sent to the back of this lead draft. And then Chris Washer would get to the inside of Gerald Reddington, coming into Oval 1 to take the lead. As we come to the end of lap 5, Sawyer Girl got to the inside of Chris Washer. This pack of 5 has broken away from the rest of the field. Alex Allen, however, ditched Sawyer Girl, and because Sawyer Girl didn't have much of a drafting partner and Chris Washer did, Chris Washer was actually able to hold on to the lead. Racing just outside the top 10, TJ Dent, who started this race second, would go off track, would come back on, make some contact with Skylar Dixon, and he would be sent into the path of Spencer Fullerton, who was the innocent victim there, and they both went into the wall. They would continue on, albeit with a little bit of damage. Scott Batista would also go off the track, but would merge back on safely. In the second pack, battling for spots just outside the top 5, Gerald Reddington would end up going off course, come back on, make some contact with Carl Endumian, sending Pichu London off the track. Pichu was able to get back on safely. Meanwhile, back up front, Sawyer Girl would get to the inside of Chris Washer coming into Kessel and would take the lead for the first time today. On lap 7, most of the field would pit, thus giving Luca Obrovac the lead in the 3 car. Michael Caine would go off the track as part of this top 5 battle, would come back on, would get into the right rear quarter panel of Matthew Stringer, spinning him around as they entered the second part of Raritan Flow. On the exit of Rutgers Bend, coming into Oval 2, Johnny Appleseed and Johnny Finguy would team up. They should call it the Johnny Connection, but the Johnny Appleseed and Finguy teamed up coming through Oval 2 to pass Luca Obrovac before immediately making their way down pit road. All other drivers that had not already pitted came down this lap. To say that this pit stop reformed the pack would be an understatement. We now have about 15 cars all running together here, trying to catch up with Johnny Appleseed, who is still our leader. In this large pack, Ophelia Endumian would get pushed off, would come back on the track, make some contact with William Duncan, and they would spin into the outside wall. Both drivers would continue, but would lose a lot of spots. William Nicholson also seemed to have gone off the track there, and Scott Batista made some contact with Ophelia Endumian, but all drivers continued. It would take the field just 2 laps to catch Johnny Appleseed, and they would blow by him on the straightaway between Oval 2 and Oval 3, and Andreas Allen now taking the lead. Both of the Allen Racing cars are up into the top 5 right now. Coming into Raritan Flow, Scott Batista would get into Ty Denny, who drove it in way too hard, and they slid off the track into the Armco barrier at the side of the track. Both drivers would continue. Mike Doan was trying to get around Andreas Allen, but Alex Allen made it 3 wide on the bottom of the track, and Alex Allen would take the lead over from his teammate Andreas. Battling for second, Johnny would drive it too hard through Raritan Flow, would go off the track, come back on, and make some contact with Sawyer Girl, spinning them both around. Again, these drivers would continue, but would lose a couple of spots and be sent into the second pack. Richard Trolinsky has to brake quite a bit to avoid some contact with Johnny Appleseed merging back onto track. After Andreas Allen came in for a second pit stop, Mike Doan would get around to Alex Allen to take the lead. These two are currently the only cars left in the lead pack. Running just inside the top 10, Johnny Finguy still hasn't seemed to figure out Raritan Flow. He slides off, goes up the track, gets into Gerald Reddington, who spins out into the outside wall, and then Johnny slams into the tire wall just as he did in the heat race. He just cannot figure that set of corners out. Gerald also shows his frustration by smashing into the side of him while the 42 was wrecked. After Mike Doan came in, Alex Allen was left the only car in the lead pack yet to come in. This is not so good for him, as he has no drafting help, and the other cars the cars in a pack will be catching him at a time rate of around 3 to 4 seconds a lap. In lap 14, Alex Allen would come into the pits, thus giving Damir Bezhienov, who was around 10 seconds back, the lead. Only 5 cars have yet to come in at this point: Damir Bezhianov, Luka Obrovak, Matthew Stringer, Carl Endumian, and Skylar Dixon. After pit stop cycles rolled through, the top 5 pack would be Mike Doan, Alex Allen, Jacob Young, Andreas Allen, and Pichu London. Rather, these 5 have put a considerable gap over 6th place. Johnny Appleseed seriously underestimated the time necessary to heat his tires, as he went way off in Raritan Flow. It's like the throttle stuck on that practically. At the speed he went off, but he would continue on. Miraculously, that car pretty much undamaged. Coming into Oval 3, Alex Allen would retake the lead from Mike Doan. Andreas Allen and Pichu London had to come into the pits there. They're already out of gas. They were pushing their cars way too hard, I guess. Anyways, the lead pack has now dropped to just 3 cars. Coming to 4 laps to go, Mike Doan would have to come into the pits, so now the lead pack is just 2 cars, Jacob Young and Alex Allen, to settle it out for the victory. Jacob Young jumps to the inside of Alex Allen coming through Oval 1, and through the hook on. Alex Allen looks like he's going to hold on. At the end of Raritan Flow, though, Jacob Young, who was on the outside, was actually able to take the position. Coming to 2 laps to go, Jacob Young would take the lead coming down the front straightaway. After getting his 3rd set of tires, Michael Caine would drive off the track. He underestimated the temperature of the tires, I guess, and ran wide in the next corner after having no one to crash into, and smashed into the tire barrier. Coming to the white flag, Jacob Young would have to come into the pits. He's out of fuel. Thus leaving Alex Allen as the only car in the lead pack, but he has a massive 15-second lead. Alex Allen would be able to make his fuel last to the finish, and he would win he would lead at the end of segment 1 by 10.5 seconds. A long way back, Matthew Stringer would come across the line 2nd. Luka Obrovak would come across 3rd. Matthew Nicholson would get 4th, and Damir Bezhianov is 5th at the end of segment 1. Because of the field mirroring at the start of segment 2, Matthew Stringer would lead the field down. Alex Allen, who won segment 1, would be on his outside. It wouldn't take long before Matthew Nicholson would drive by Matthew Stringer in Raritan Flow. The drivers being a little bit more aggressive than they were at the beginning of segment 1, that's for sure. Things have definitely already picked up. Coming into Kessel for the first time in segment 2, Luka Obrovak would make it 3 wide. Alex Allen and Spencer Fullerton would get too close to each other, and Spencer would get into the quarter panel of Alex Allen, turning him hard into the tire wall. Alex Allen, our segment 1 winner, already out of the race. Coming down the straightaway between Oval 2 and Oval 3, Skylar Dixon would get underneath Matthew Nicholson to try and take the lead, but Luka Obrovak would make it 3 wide. Luka would take the lead. Luka has already made his way up from 4th place at the beginning of this race to fourth place at the beginning of the segment to leading at the end of lap 1. Luka being very aggressive so far this segment. Pichu London, however, would get to the inside of Luka Obrovak and would take the lead for himself through Oval 1. Terrence Day would run his car too hard through Raritan Flow, would go up the track into Alex Allen, and they would both spin into the outside wall, as so many drivers have done so far this race. Damir Bezhianov would get to the inside of Pichu London off of Oval Turn 2 and would take the lead into Oval 3. Jacob Young, however, would force Damir Bezhianov way up the track, and he would take the lead through Oval 1 and coming into the hook-on. Matthew Nicholson, who was running well in the top 5, went off the track in Raritan flows, slapped the wall, but merged onto the track safely, avoiding some contact with Matthew Stringer, who I'm sure wouldn't be too happy to be spun out in that corner again in segment 2. At the very back of this pack, we have Johnny Appleseed, who's sliding off in Raritan Flow. Johnny's car is just not hooking up very well to the surface after they repaired that damage or whatever adjustments they made into segment 2. He uses the access road, one of the first drivers to do that, but gets confused and hits the barrier on the inside of the access road. Third place Mike Doan would get a tap from Carl Endumian coming through Raritan Flow, would go off the track, come back on, and make some contact with Ophelia Endumian, who was side by side with Chris Washer, and Mike Doan would go into the wall. Ophelia would also go off the track, but all 3 of these drivers would continue. Jacob Young, Skylar Dixon, and Carl Endumian would break away by quite a few seconds over the next pack, but on lap 6, Skylar Dixon and Jacob Young would come into the pits, leaving Carl Endumian as the only car in the front pack. Well, you can't really call it a pack, but Carl Endumian currently the leader. Most of the field would come down on lap 7, leaving Kyle Sosnowski and Richard Trelinsky as the only cars left on track that have not pitted yet. After making his pit stop, Andreas Allen would underestimate the grip he had in his tires, would slide off the course, come back on right into the path of Paul Swanson, and they would both spin out. Both drivers would, like always, continue after spinning in Raritan Flow. Kyle Sosnowski and Richard Trelinsky would come into pit at lap 8, giving the lead back to Jacob Young. Skylar Dixon, however, had other ideas, making it diving to the inside in Oval 1 to take the lead for the first time today. Coming through Kessel, Scott Batista would drive by into the lead as Skylar Dixon ran wide. Jeffrey Finguy is up into second. Scott Batista got a bit of a lead until they hit the oval section of the course, where Skylar Dixon and Carl Endumian were able to team up to grab the lead. Carl Endumian, though, is not going to settle for second. He dives to the inside of Skylar coming into Oval 1, and it looks like Carl's going to take the lead. Carl Endumian, while leading, drives off course in Raritan Flow, goes up the track, gets into Skylar Dixon. Great saves by Skylar Dixon once again. He must be used to getting slammed into in that corner or something, because he knows exactly what to do to maintain control and to help the other driver save their car. Jacob Young, however, took the lead from that incident. James O'Shea, who has made his way up into the lead draft, would jump to the inside of Jacob Young and take the lead coming into turn 1. We now have about a 10 to 12 car lead pack now, as the second pack, because of the raciness in the first pack, was able to catch up and start racing with the lead pack. Gerald Reddington, who also made his way up into the second pack, would take the lead a lap later. After most of the pack came in this lap to complete their second pit stop, James O'Shea and Richard Trelinsky would drive by Gerald Reddington. These two are teammates, although they do not have a formal team name. But either way, these drivers both have very strong cars and obviously have a decent pit strategy as well to perhaps even come in together. Kyle Sosnowski, who's running on quite old tires, would run wide in Raritan Flow, get into the wall, and spin his car. Luckily, there was no one immediately behind him, otherwise that could have been a much bigger accident. After his teammate James O'Shea came into the pits, Richard Trelinsky would be passed by the 12 of Gerald Reddington coming into Oval 3. The next lap, coming through Oval 3, Richard Trelinsky would help William Nicholson in getting by Gerald Reddington to take the lead for the first time this race. Coming into Raritan Flow, Jeffrey Finguy would make some contact with Paul Swanson, sending him off the track. And when he merged back on, he would make some contact with Mark Nutt, sending Mark Nutt off the track. And Mark Nutt would not be able to recover, slamming into the tire wall. After the round of pit stops, Richard Trelinsky would have a pretty slow pit stop, so he would be about 3 or 4 seconds behind Gerald and William, and without drafting help, so the lead battle is now just between Gerald Reddington and William Nicholson as we approach the end of segment 2. Coming down the oval section of the course, William Nicholson would take the lead from Gerald Reddington easily. With no other drafting help, basically it's whoever is behind the other driver who's able to get a run and, well, take the lead. That's what it's going to be between these two drivers. Gerald Reddington, however, was able to retake the lead on the exit of Raritan Flow. Coming to 4 laps to go, William Nicholson would once again drive by Gerald Reddington out of Oval Turn 3. The two would once again swap the lead coming through Kessel, Gerald getting to the inside of William running a tiny bit wide, and Gerald back into the lead. The 3 cars behind them are actually beginning to catch them because of their hard racing. Richard Trelinsky would become the first casualty of race due to equipment failure. He was running 5th at the time, and his motor just went. He was beginning to lose the tail end of that second pack, so I was wondering if something was wrong with him, and obviously there was. The engine, I guess, just broke after more than 350 kilometers of hard racing. Predictably, William Nicholson would once again take the lead from Gerald Reddington out of the final corner. Coming to 2 laps to go, Gerald Reddington would get to the inside of William Nicholson, and coming into turn 1, they would be dead even. It seems William Nicholson is a little bit stronger than Gerald on the oval section, but Gerald's a little stronger on the road course section. We'll have to see how this one turns out in the end, as Gerald takes the lead coming into the, well, predictably the first part of the road course. William proved how strong his car is on the oval section as they come to the white flag now. William just blew by Gerald in turn 3, whereas Gerald took the entire oval section to get around William, and in fact Gerald didn't get around him until they hit the road course section. White flag is in the air for segment 2. Mike Down, after the exit of his pit stall, would merge on track, but would make some contact with Chris Washer, and Mike would be sent way off course, way past even the road course section onto the oval section. Mike, you're not supposed to be on this section of the course. Mike will have to, I guess, wait 2.5 minutes, as that is what the drivers have been told to do. If they must skip the road course section, they have to wait 2.5 minutes before merging back onto the ending oval section of the course. Sawyer Gurlow, who was running 18th, would have a mechanical failure entering the oval section for the final time, and he would merge onto the grass safely to get out of the other driver's way, and he would limp back to the start-finish line to continue in segment 3. Back out front, the battle's anything but over, though. These two drivers have a lead of over 20 seconds over third place, so it's just them battling it out for the lead. Gerald Reddington dives to the inside of William Nicholson, entering the final corner. Who's gonna lead the race at the end of segment 2 and get 5 bonus points? I mean, second place still gets 4. Who's it gonna be? Drag race to the line between these two drivers. Williams pulling ahead, and it looks like it's gonna be William Nicholson that is gonna lead at the end of segment 2. Gerald finishes just 0.02 of a second behind in second. A while later, Luke Walker in the 100 would come across the line third. We haven't seen him up front most of the day, but he's doing well at the end of segment 2, that's for sure. Matthew Stringer, once again, another top 5 in the segment a segment for him. He looks very strong entering the final segment, and William Duncan is in 5th entering the final segment. Scott Batista, who is 10th at the end of segment 2, will be our leader at the start of the final segment, the final 100 kilometers of the 500 kilometer endurance race. We are green. Ty Dent in the 83 is on his outside. These guys are getting ready to go already. They're already making it 3 wide. James O'Shea and Matthew Stringer trying to come up the middle. William Duncan pushed out 4 wide. Scott Batista is going to take the early lead down into the hook. William Nicholson and Ty Dent are stuck in a 3 wide situation. Ty Dent gets into William Nicholson and they go hard into the wall. William Nicholson with a huge impact into the Armco barrier. He won segment 2 and already he's out of the race, just like Alex Allen in the segment 1 winner was out on the first lap. William Nicholson out on the first lap of segment 3 after winning segment 2. Coming to the end of lap 1, James O'Shea and Ty Dent would team up coming into turn 3, and they would take the lead from Scott Batista. Running second, Ty Dent dove it into Raritan Flow a little bit too hard, runs wide, slams the wall, but luckily is able to merge back on track safely, very close to getting into Matthew Stringer, who dives to the left a little bit towards Ophelia and Dumian there to avoid contact, but great job by these drivers. Scott Batista, while running in the top 5, had a mechanical failure. Coming out of the oval section, dropped to the inside, trying to get onto the grass, had no grip, slid up the track right in front of Spencer Fullerton. Spencer Fullerton around again. This is the 3rd. He's been involved in incidents in all 3 segments so far. Unfortunate for him. A bad day gets worse for both Scott Batista and Spencer Fullerton, who both seem to be crash magnets today. James O'Shea becomes one of the first drivers to lead 2 consecutive laps in this race, but Skylar Dixon and Jacob Young would team up to get by him as they went through turn 1. Down the long front straightaway, Ophelia and Dumian would get by Skylar Dixon and would move up into the lead for the first time since segment 1, I think. Coming into Oval 3, just 7 laps to go now. James O'Shea gets to the inside of Ophelia and Dumian. Damir Bejgenov right on his bumper moves into second, as the front pack is currently composed of about 10 cars. Skylar Dixon is able to retake the lead in turn 1, however, after James O'Shea gets stuck in the middle. William Duncan and Jacob Young, however, make it 3 wide coming into the hook on with Skylar, and things are definitely starting to heat up front. The lead is changing more readily than it has at any point during this race so far, and Jacob Young is your current leader. As we approach what should be the only green flag pit stops of the race, if everyone's obviously a little bit careful with their fuel mileage, William Duncan has taken the lead from Jacob Young. Skylar Dixon in the 96, however, wants the lead back. Jacob Young and Skylar Dixon were dominant in segment 2, and they're trying to make it, and they're trying to continue their dominance in segment 3 so far as they move back up into 1st and 2nd. Chris Washer drives Raritan Flow too hard, gets into the grass, comes back on track, right in front of Carl and Dumian, who has nowhere to go but into the quarter panel of Chris Washer. Carl's able to save that car, but Chris goes head on into the outside wall. Chris Washer would retire from this accident. Back up front, Jacob Young drives around Skylar Dixon in Kessel. Skylar Dixon just hasn't really gotten the hang of Kessel, has lost the lead quite a few times in that corner, and Jacob just seems to be very consistent through that corner. Jacob Young might actually have led the most laps in this race so far. After the cycle of green flag pit stops, Damir Bejgenov had a great stop, and he would be the leader. Mike Doan and Gerald Reddington also had good stops, and they would be in 2nd and 3rd. Mike Doan dives underneath Damir Bejjanov coming into oval turn 1, and with some help from Gerald Reddington, they would move into first and second. While battling for 17th spot, Terrence Day would dive it into Raritan Flow a little bit too hard, would get into the quarter panel of Matthew Nicholson, and they would go off the track and into the wall. Matthew Nicholson would continue, but Terrence Day in the 55 would be the last car to retire from the endurance race, as Jeffrey Finguy nearly makes some contact with Matthew Nicholson there. Coming down to the white flag, Mike Doan and Gerald Reddington, who are 1-2, would have to come into the pits. I guess they pitted too soon on their first pit cycle, because this is going to leave Damir Bejjanov with the big 4.5 second lead coming to the white flag. The question then became, could the second pack reel in Damir Bejjanov in time on this last lap? Damir is right on the edge of what can be accomplished in a pack compared to as far as gap closing on a car in first place. Look at them, they're coming up on him very quickly. Dakota Honecker is coming into the pits, he's out of fuel. Damir's got one corner to go. Can he hold on for the victory at the endurance race? William Duncan and James O'Shea have teamed up to work against him. Here comes William and James. William's right on his back bumper off the final corner. William and James look to the inside. Damir's got no help. Who's going to win it? Damir Bejjanov wins the endurance race here in Edison, New Jersey. William Duncan came up just a little bit short to the Kazakh driver. Still a great run by William Duncan, finishing second, just 0.03 of a second behind Damir Bejjanov in a photo finish. Incredible that they were that close after 500 kilometers of racing. James O'Shea is going to finish third. Luka Obrovac's going to get fourth, and Jacob Young is going to come across the line at the end of the top 5. Andreas Allen is going to grab 6th place. He had a bit of trouble during segment 2, but worked his way back to the front of the pack. Luke Walker is going to get 7th. And then quite a few seconds back, Skylar Dixon gets 8th. Alex Tanker comes across the line in 9th position. And Ophelia Ndumian rounds out the top 10.